Hello friends, welcome to the world of industrial safety management. Today we are going to look into discourse 7, which is part 3 of total 5 parts of hazard identification, risk assessment and risk management. It is second part of the risk assessment, which is risk rating methodology. Now we will just have a small revision of the last discourse where we tried to learn about the risk assessment and its process. So what we have looked into is that you start with hazard identification. So you identify hazards present from work activity, which include process, machine, materials, people, and there may be other factors like layout, housekeeping, work environment. We will discuss about process, machine, materials, people at length. The other factors, that layout. Now there is a particular layout of the workshop and there may be certain problems that the alley between the machine is not enough, it is very narrow, or machines are put haphazardly, not according to the process flow, there are no walkways or gangways. So there may be certain problem with the layout. Then there may be a big problem with the housekeeping, that material is kept anywhere, wherever you find the place to keep it. So exit doors are blocked, gangways are blocked, your staircases are blocked and everything is littered everywhere. So such type of a problem may be there in case of housekeeping. And work environment means there may not be enough light or the ventilation is not proper and so on. So these may be the factors connected with all these layout, housekeeping, work environment, etc. Now evaluate risk involved in terms of, again, who will be harmed, likelihood that the harm will occur, severity of the harm and other risk factors. So we know that we look into who, what, where, when, how. So again the questions. So evaluate the risk. Identify the hazard, second is evaluate the risk. Then next is give rating on the basis of control measures available. So whatever the control measures are present at that point, you give the rating. We will see the template. There you can see that how the present controls are there and what is the risk rating, and when the controls are improved, what is the risk rating. So identify preventive action. So you know that there is something lacking, some more controls are required. So you identify those actions which are to be carried out to reduce the risk identified. Now again you have to categorize the risk, that is the critical risk, major risk, minor risk, minimal risk, and then prioritize which are the significant risks. Now decide the action, but at the same time monitor the progress on the actions identified. So you may decide to do something but you are not acting on it. So you are supposed to act on it according to the time frame which you have decided. Review risk assessment on completion of actions and review rating. So again, if you complete the action, do the risk assessment again and see whether the risk is reduced or not, whether there is some improvement or not. So we are trying to repeat what we have learned in the last discourse. Now this risk assessment can be done best by a cross-functional team and on actual spot. So you can have people from different departments. If your department is undergoing the risk assessment, some people from your department, some people from other departments like utility, maintenance, and maybe some other production department, you can call those people also, because many a times the people who are not working daily on a particular spot, they can find out the problems very easily, because routinely you can't find the problem. So cross-functional team is a best solution, and do the risk assessment on the spot, where means if a particular machine is to be assessed, the team should go to that particular spot, be in front of the machine, thoroughly check the machine, thoroughly check the controls, and then decide what new action is to be going to be done. Now you should select a standard format. As I said, we will discuss and see the standard format. Of course, you can have your own changes. Every factory or manufacturing facility can decide their format. Then use checklist. The way we use checklist for hazard identification, probably you can use checklist to evaluate the hazard associated. So create a list of the hazard. Now look for the existing control measures. It may be engineering controls or administrative controls. In hierarchy of control, we have seen that there are engineering control, thereafter comes the administrative controls. Then see whether the condition is normal, whether something is abnormal, or there is some emergency situation, immediate attention is required, so there is immediate stoppage is required. And see whether you are going to look into a planned situation. Completely document exercise, whatever you are doing, document it and give it a particular version number. Now once you prepare the report, submit this risk assessment report to all concerned, and that means your HOD, your safety department, EHS department, and ensure their availability in the department. So those documents must be stored, must be kept in your department, because they are related to your department. So you submit a copy to the higher ups, but at the same time you also keep the record with you, and you are supposed to do the periodic review. We have discussed about the review in the last discourse. Now when we do the risk rating, so when we give a numerical value to the risk, means we categorize the risk as critical, major, minor, minimal, but then we have to be more clear about the level of the risk. We have to do some digitization or express it in numerical form. So we have seen that there are two aspects of the risk. One is probability, one is consequence. So we measure the severity of the consequence. So what we do in this method, there are 2-3 different methods, but generally a method which is used largely by the people is 1 to 5 a matrix. So we give value from 1 to 5 to the severity of the particular risk which is assessed. So you give numerical value 1 to minimal and insignificant risks, or the consequence, not risk but the consequence. So what is the severity of the consequence? If it is minimal or insignificant, we give value 1. So there may be superficial cuts, bruise or abrasion, temporary discomfort, transient skin irritation, injuries or illness requiring no treatment or first aid only. I will not discuss all these events, because you very well know what is the meaning of it. So 1 to minimal and insignificant. 2 to low and minor. So severity is low and minor. So here you will find deep cut or open wound, moderate eye or skin irritation, minor sprain, mild infection, mild burn, injuries and illness requiring medical treatment beyond first aid. Now value 3 to medium and moderate, that is a minor fracture, serious sprain or strain, reportable or lost time injury, illness, job restrictions, serious irritations, temporary impairment. Value 4 to high or major severity, that means major fracture, amputation, severe burn or tissue damage, severe systemic illness, permanent and prolonged impairment, that is complete partial loss of hearing or vision. And number 5 to very high or catastrophic, that is fatal injury or illness. So friends, you can use this chart, and with the help of that you can also do the risk assessment whenever you are doing it at your site. So it's a very easy guide for you, that whenever you are doing risk assessment you can refer to this. Now severity in the other terms. So last slide we have looked into the injuries and illness, but there is a damage to the property also. So there may be a loss of reputation and loss of property in terms of money, rupee. So again value 1 to minimal and insignificant, that is little or no impact, or just for the example you can say financial loss less than 10,000, there is a minor rework. The value 2 to low and minor. So minor impact, that is financial loss more than 10,000, loss of current batch, minor impact on company reputation. Value 3 to medium and moderate. So here moderate impact, that means financial loss more than 1 lakh, loss of production of 1 shift, moderate impact on company reputation. Value 4 to high and major severity in terms of finance or reputation, that is major impact, that is financial loss more than 10 lakh, loss of production for week, major impact on company reputation. Number 5 for very high and catastrophic. So catastrophic impact, that is financial loss more than 50 lakhs, loss of production of 1 month, high impact on the company reputation. Now again please try to understand, this is one example. Now you can use your own criteria. That means for you the low and minor loss may be up to 1 lakh rupee. Okay. Or the very high and catastrophic, you may consider that if the loss is more than 1 crore, then it can be considered as very high or catastrophic. So this is again a general guideline, that how the severity in terms of the financial loss and reputation can be analyzed. So 1 to 5, 1 to 5. So this is severity part. Now probability or likelihood. So again you use scale 1 to 5, And how we use it is according to probability of happening. So unlikely ever to happen. So there are very, very less chances, not at all expected. Unlikely. So you give 1. Could expect one incident in a year or very rare event. There you give 2. Could expect one incident in a month. So there is a possibility. So give 3. Could expect one incident in a week. Likely. So give 4. So as the probability increasing, we are increasing the scale. Likely to happen at any moment, or it is almost certain, then give 5. Now let us see how the matrix is created. So on the x-axis there is a consequences, and on the y-axis there is likelihood. So it is a 5 by 5 matrix. So on the consequence axis, again we have plotted insignificant, minor, moderate, major, catastrophic from 1 to 5. On y-axis we have plotted likelihood, but in a reverse manner. So almost certain 5, likely 4, possible 3, rare 2, unlikely 1. So when there is a rating 1 to consequences and rating 5 to likelihood, the risk rating is 5. If the likelihood rating is 5 and the consequence rating is also 5, the risk is rated as 25. Reversely, if the consequence is insignificant and the likelihood is that there is no chance, it is very unlikely to happen, so both of them are having 1, so the value carries 1 into 1 is 1. So this way you can give the numerical value to the assessed risk. So from 1 to 4, where there is a green area, it is called as the insignificant risk or minor risk. The amber area, that is from 5 to 9, it is a moderate risk or moderate risk, and from 10 to 25 it is a major risk, or you can call as significant risk. So it is a traffic signal concept, that red, amber or yellow and green. So wherever there is a red signal, you have to stop. So whenever you find that the risk is beyond 10, you have to immediately stop the process, particularly when the risk rating is more than 20 up to 25. So you stop the process, take the corrective action immediately. For amber and green, you can decide the time frame, that if you judge that we can do the work within say 3 to 4 days, or you can do the work within say 8 days or 15 days. So accordingly you can plan the corrective action or rectification. So that's why it is red, yellow and green. Green you can continue. See, yellow, there is a caution, you have to observe continuously, and if need be, take the action immediately, like that. So this is the numerical concept of risk rating. So here we can immediately understand which risk is more and which risk is less because of the numerical value given. Just by saying insignificant or catastrophic or unlikely or almost certain, it becomes very difficult to judge. From numerical value, you can immediately judge. So it facilitates the understanding of the risk level. but at the same time it has some its own problems. That means please try to understand two situations where the probability is very likely but the severity is low. That means our rating comes to 5, that very likely 5 and low severity 1. So 5 into 1, 5. So it may be minor slips, trips and falls, paper cutters cut. So some cut due to the paper cutter which needs first aid. So these things are very likely. That means slips, trips can happen number of times. You can have a wound due to the paper cutter, a small wound or a small cut many a times. So very likely, so incidence is very likely but the severity is low. The rating is 5. Now next example is very unlikely but high severity. That means the chances of happening it is very low, so the rating is 1 but the severity is very high. So you give the consequence rating 5. So again the risk rating is 5. So the first example, the above example and the below example, in both the cases the risk rating is 5. But you have to be logical. You have to give attention to the risks which have high severity. Say like factory burns down, there is an explosion, or factory hit by a crashing aircraft. Now complete factory getting burned down is very unlikely. Major explosion is very unlikely, or some aircraft may crash on the factory, very unlikely. But the consequences will be very high, the severity will be very high. So logically what you have to infer is that even though the risk rating is same, that is 5, you should be more attentive to the situations where there is a high severity, because okay, by chance if such happens, something happens, then the consequences are very high. But in all, in a larger perspective, this method comes to the help of the safety personnel to decide on the level of the risk. So wherever the risk assessment is to be carried out, so there are different levels. Here the levels are different, what levels we are talking. So facility level or the factory level. So the facility may be a pilot plant, a laboratory, a warehouse, or a manufacturing facility. So whatever the facility is there, see in lab also there may be some risk, in pilot plant there may be some risk, warehousing it has its own problem. So the first level is facility. Second level is the utility or the services, that is steam, electric power, compressed air, hot water, and so on. The third level is activities. The activities that take place within the facility. So there may be certain activity going on in pilot plant, there may be different activity going into the lab, the warehouse activity will be different, the manufacturing facility will be different, again in manufacturing facility activity in different departments will be different. So you have to go through all the activities that take place within that facility. Then break down that activities into the task. So different tasks may be performed by the different people in that particular group activity. So for tasks, the detailed action that people have to do within that facility. So everyone is doing particular job, a certain job, and he is performing certain tasks. So you have to look into the task performed by every individual. Then you have to observe people, the people who work in the factory, who come and visit the factory to work there. So regardless of the discipline, you must observe the people who are working in the factory or who have come to the facility as the visitor. So these are the different levels of the risk assessment that you have to assess the risk at the facility level, at the utility or service level, at individual activities level, then individual task level, and overall the people who are working in the facility. We have already seen the review of risk assessment in the last, discourse. So whether it is one-time exercise? No, it is not at all a one-time exercise. It is a continuous exercise and you have to review it periodically. Why? Because the risks do keep on changing as the situation or the environment. So every day the things are different. Though many things are common, but some new things may crop up. So review of risk assessment is done as per defined periodicity. You decide 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. When implementing new process or change in process, change in machine or equipment, change in material, etc., we have discussed it. And whenever there is a change, risk assessment has to be done. You have to look into whether new hazards have cropped up, whether the risk level is changed. Even you use the same equipment but change its place, you shift it from one place to the another place, still risk assessment is required. Then risk assessment is very much required where safe system of work do not exist. Now we will look into safe system of work at the appropriate time. It is a written document detailing the safe way, how you can perform the given operations in a particular way. And risk assessment is required especially where there are high risk activities. So what are the high risk activities? Working at height, lifting operations, that is, crane, derricks. Then there are unstable loads where you are handling unstable loads. Then handling, storing, transportation of highly flammable or toxic materials. Then electricity, wherever you are working on electricity. And when there is a demolition operation and maybe sometimes some unfamiliar scenario. So in such cases, the risk assessment is a must. You must do the risk assessment before working at height, before you are handling the flammables or toxic materials and so on. Now, as I said, this is a template for risk assessment. Mind well, you can have your own template, but it's a good guideline. See, there is, it is mentioned what is the area or location, then what is the activity or operation, then who is the assessor, then what is the assessment date, what will be the review date if the review takes place, It is something about the boiler house, and there is some problem with the steam and the pressure, and so they have done the risk assessment, and their present controls whichever are there, the assessed risk is 15, that is 5 is the severity, likelihood is 3, so it is 15. So they have decided certain action, remedial measures, so the likelihood has been reduced to 1, the severity is same 5, so the severity rating has reduced to 5. So these are the columns, that is what is the hazard, who might be harmed and how, existing control measures, existing rating, what is the action or the remedial measures recommended, and after that what will be the risk rating. So these are the common columns you find in a template for risk assessment. Same columns are again reflected into the CAPA registers. Okay, so you can very well use this template, as well as you can modify this template whenever you are going to use it at your place according to your requirement. You can conduct the group exercise to have the practice of risk assessment. So select an equipment or activity in your area. List down at least 5 hazards associated. Find out. Just have brainstorming. List down 5 hazards associated. List control measures which are existing against each hazard. Provide the risk rating. Suggest action plan to reduce the risk further. And then again, give the improved risk rating if the risk rating has reduced because of the actions which are going to be taken. So what is the conclusion of risk assessment? That risk assessment puts you in control. If you don't do a sufficient risk assessment today, you may be doing an accident investigation tomorrow. So if you want to prevent the accident, if you don't want to go into the investigation of the accidents, you are supposed to do the risk assessment today and take the requisite actions, remedial actions, so that the risk is reduced. So in this discourse, which is part 2 of the risk assessment, we have seen the methodology of the risk rating. We have looked into certain shortcomings or drawbacks of this methodology, and we have looked into how a template can be created and how we are supposed to take action to improve the control measures. So friends, thank you for watching. You can resume viewing further and can switch on to discourse 8, where we will discuss about risk management or control of risk. Friends, do not forget to share, like, comment and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.